Karen Potter, Waihoro, Spreydon Cashmere Community Board.
Ata Marie, kia ora tātou. Waihoro, first of all, we'd like to thank Linwood.
Well done.
For their considerations of Buchan Park. Almost the last meeting that our board had before the last election was about Buchan Park, and we were only just doing the last minute changes to the seating, for instance, asking for more seating and making it more conversational, because we knew the development was going to go in and that development would be full of perhaps single parent families, and that also the workers in Sydenham frequently use that park, and it's extraordinarily tired and extraordinarily old, and it's actually quite terrible given that it's an inner city park now and it would be used extensively by the housing that's just been developed. So we thank Linwood for taking it under its wing. Our first comment, for instance, and our first priority is the rates uniform annual charge. Well, I'm really astonished by this. I arrived in Christchurch in the late 80s, and the extraordinary thing that you noticed about the city was how much the people of Christchurch loved the council and the council loved the people of Christchurch. It was such a uniform and collective understanding of the purpose of Christchurch and where Christchurch was headed. And it has been a council that would never have had a uniform annual charge. It always believed that there must be equity, social equity in terms of a city that works and acts together, and that there is no equity in this when the annual charge is the same for the poor as it is for the rich. And now that we haven't got the possibility of a CGT, this is something that the Christchurch City Council could have done, to have said to its people, you are worthy, no matter what the cost of your house, no matter what it looks like and how it is, you are the same and will have the same facilities and concerns and support from this council as if you were living in Fendleton. And contrary to what Sam says, we should be thinking about the wider city and the issues that matter to them and its people, rather than just considering the issues for our own, the people that we represent. So our board is uniformly opposed to this, and it's the top priority in our submission on the annual plan. Disability access, unsurprisingly, this is our second concern, and we continue to raise this and we continue to hope for some gains on this. We would like, for instance, for roading to, whenever there are changes to roading, we'd like the deep ditches to go. You cannot put a little kid into a car when it's parked alongside a deep ditch, and neither can disabled people access their cars on the side of the road when there are deep ditches. These are one of the things that are traps for people with physical disabilities, and they're all over Christchurch. We were slowly changing them pre-earthquake. Whenever a road was done up, the deep ditches went, but those things are not occurring now. And it is a shame, and we hope that the council can get back to its usual business of gradually making changes across the city, both in footpaths and deep ditches. It means more than this. It means the things that I've addressed before, where all projects that come to community boards and council have in them a box which we look at disability issues both for and against in the proposal, and what the developers of the proposal consider that they will be doing to advantage or give equity to people with disabilities. Transport. One of the things the Limes taught us is that we don't know what's coming down the road. And one of the concerns our board has is that projects that have been on our books for 20 years in terms of roading are being implemented without this consideration. We have no idea what the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years will bring to us in terms of alternative transport, but we are continuing to build those kinds of roadings where the people will come. If we widen our roads, if we get rid of old houses and old shops, if we make our roads look like motorways going through our older suburbs, and if we build these wide roads, including public transport, then when the alternative arrives in 10 years' time, we'll be slightly astonished. We will wish that we hadn't spent that money, and we wish that we had thought about those transport options that are on our books for 20 years that use cars and are mostly built for cars and or public transport that may not be the public transport of the future. It's only that we are not being open or discussing the alternative that Lime's taught us just around the corner. General maintenance service levels. This is specifically about the parks and green space areas. I'd very much like a campaign to be introduced by council. I asked for a campaign on signage. It's hilarious when you're going down at 80k down Sparks Road, and there's a sign there which explains, it says thank you to the residents, and that's the only thing you can read. There's a whole sign there explaining what the project's about, or what the retention ponds are about, or next door to the road, what the road is about, or what the cycleway is about. There's a whole articulation of the council's intention, and you can't read it because the signs aren't built to be read while you're travelling on the road. I'd very much like the council to be explaining to its citizens what they are doing. It seems simple to me. If we're spending ratepayers' money, why can't we explain to the residents that live in that area or traverse that area what we are doing? And one of the other things I'd like people to be explaining to residents is that never again will our parks look as though they're groomed by a hairdresser. And neither should they ever look like that. And we should be saying to residents, if we're not using poisons...
I think Aaron resents that remark.
What?
About hairdressers.
Sorry, Aaron. You're a splendid example of hairdressing. But we're never going to look like that again. And the parks are never going to look like that again if we don't use poisons. And I think we should be explaining to the residents that they will see more weeds, that the footpaths won't look absolutely pristine, and that there may be some things that are slightly out of place because we're not using poisons. I'd really like that explained to the residents. I think if we communicated more with the people would understand. The board supports the project on restoring our water to pure, clean, clear water in all the places that the water is and all the places that we are. We consider the river to be our taonga. It's the most poisoned river, but we think that the councils, both the drainage guys who are doing some amazing work, and the river network in our ward, which was established by a board member, Helen Mountner, in our ward, and connects with the other wards in terms of the river network, and the people who do volunteer work on the river, including the Beckenham school kids and the Cashmere residents who voluntarily test the water every week. All of these people are contributing to a river that is going to be improved, and we thank the council for its efforts and returning the city drinking water supply to its unadulterated state. We think the council's doing its best. We think the staff are doing its best, and we'd like to thank them. The board places a great deal of importance on the many community groups and projects that are at the heart of the city through its Strengthening Communities Fund. Our board lost out in the last changes of boundaries. We'd like to think that the Statistics Department will allow a better boundary change at the next time. We don't have the kinds of community funds that some other boards have in terms of being able to allocate it into things like greenfields, for example. We regret that. We miss the connection with the community that small funds used to allow us. We are just saying that we think that the community funding should be restored to a fairer basis, and we'd like to see the community board being allowed to make the decisions on it as well. You?
All right. Pedestrian facilities, so like all boards, we all want to see sufficient funding there for roads and footpaths across the city to make sure that everyone can get down the footpath and everything is well cared for. Social housing's a big part of what our board supports. We want to continue supporting the council with a commitment to providing social housing and upkeep and the building of social housing across the city. Our board takes a stance on sale of council assets, that we do not want to ever see that. And then lastly, about flooding. Flooding is an issue across the city, especially probably even after last night. And we're very appreciative of the works that have happened on Curlitz Road and Sparks Road in regards to the retention ponds and things like that to prevent flooding into people's homes. But we'll talk specifically about there's another issue further along.
Okay. Our Manuka cottage is now being rebuilt and on parkland, which is great and which we firmly believe in. It will allow greater use of the park in Addington, and we look forward to its establishment. It has been a long time in coming. The Mid-Heskett Master Plan, the drainage guys are moving quietly along the Heskett River to reinforce the banks, to widen the top of the banks and so on to help prevent flooding. We support the work that's being done. They're currently on Palatine Terrace, which is a terrace that should have not exist. It was a road put through by the Heskett County, which shouldn't have happened because it's always been completely unstable, and they're currently right there. They look as though they're building a road that actually is going to last for the eons, and our board is very grateful for the work that's being done. The intersection of Barrington, Lincoln Road and Whiteley. This has been premised for quite a while now. I was advised privately that the access for people with disability on this intersection was not at its premium in the proposals for this intersection. We hope that when this intersection is done, that they understand and that the council understands that this intersection in particular is surrounded by not just older people but people with disability. There is supported housing right round this intersection, and we'd like this intersection particularly to be an exemplar of disability, accessibility and safety for pedestrians. And we look forward to a discussion on that at the board level. We would not want the current proposals that have been in existence for about 5 years to be the proposal that's enacted. We would like it to have premium disability, accessibility and safety. The intersection improvement from Cashmere, Hoonhay, Worsleys, this was put off from the 2018-19 financial year. We expect it to commence in 2019. This is an intersection that's increasingly unsafe. It has housing projects on the other side of this intersection. It has the adventure park. It has trucks coming down the Nuppet because of the fires on the Cashmere Hills. This is an intersection that people feel is unsafe, and we look forward to it proceeding. And finally, Centennial Hall, damaged in the 2011 earthquakes, continues to have money allocated to it for its demolition, sits there as a depressing indicator of sometimes of how little progress we've made, just like Coronation Hall, just up the road from it. We'd like to see a decision being made on Centennial Hall. We'd like to be participants in that decision. Underneath is land that could be valuable for housing. It also could be valuable for a preschool, for the future of the kura that is next door to it. We'd like to be able to participate in that decision making. We wish the council would just get something underway because the local community considers it depressing, and it is depressing. Just chopping back to flooding for a second because I did miss something.
we would like to see some specific money go towards Spreydon to some of the small sort of sites that are connected to the Heathcote River but not directly next to it, that we have had public meetings about, because there probably could be some small springs. It's not just springs, it's just where the land is flat and it doesn't drain very well out to the Heathcote. So there could be some specific money just for widening some piping and things, which is probably relatively small in the scheme of the whole cost of the flooding, or money towards decreasing flooding, hopefully. And then we've put in here delay and delete about Lincoln Road widening. This is between Curlitz Road and Wrights Road, which we've mentioned for many times that we've come to the board, and we continue to say that. We won't say much about the other parts of Lincoln Road. And then the last thing, which we haven't put into our submission, but the council passed a resolution, so most of you, on July 2016, about putting in a little flyer to go into the rates to talk about community boards. It could also talk about Snap, Send, Solve, what you do if you've got an issue, anything like that, to be sent out post-election, last election. Now, we've been told that that hasn't actually happened, and there's some particular reason for that. I don't know, we haven't heard back what that is yet, and I'm very disappointed about that, because, I mean, I'm going to go to the Jazz Festival, but that's the last one I got in my rates, and I want to see about community boards because it's a piece of paper and it shouldn't cost that much, and people don't know who the heck we are. So I want this to go back in, and I want to see it happen.
Because the council said it was going to happen, and somebody out there, obscure, decided it wasn't.
They could come and talk to us personally if they want to.
People don't know.
So that's where we're at.
All right, well, I mean,
it's so frustrating when somebody out there makes a decision contrary to the council.
And also
I don't
Gracie,
have any information on that, so
we've only just really heard about it, and I know Grace had done a lot of work on it when she was our governance manager, and it was on its way. So yeah,
it's what we knew.
So we'd like to find out more about it, and maybe next post-election.
Yeah. Okay. No, I mean, sorry. I mean, and this is our fault. We have to take this on board. That we need to make sure that we're following up on these resolutions, just so that we're getting them ticked off, so that we know that they've been undertaken. So I do apologise for that. Pauline, and then Dion.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of these one-on-one deputations. We pick up these things that have been dropped. Just on Lincoln Road, does the board support bus priority lanes going down there? Without widening the road?
Oh, bus priority, probably. That has yet to be decided, because we are effectively the hearing panel for the decision on Lincoln Road in Addington.
Yes.
So we are not going to state an opinion on that, because we are the hearing panel. Our board is the hearing panel. Right. This is but way before it, on a very wide part of the road, and where bus priority, we would be supportive of bus priority.
Our board would support bus priority. Yeah. What we're worried about is the spending of money, and are there other ways that you can achieve the outcomes you want without spending millions of dollars?
Okay, but you're talking about the integrity of the historic Eddington as a village.
Well, this isn't what we're talking about here. We were talking about Curlitz to Wrights here.
Which is before Addington as a village.
Because that was in the last long-term plan iteration, and that's what we discussed about. We didn't even know about the Addington village last time we put through a submission.
It wasn't in the annual
and
plan.
We can't speak about it if we're going to be having people come to us.
We do believe in bus priority, but that road is very much wide enough for bus priority already.
I got your point around no asset sales. What I'd like to understand is, do you also take land as an asset? or do you consider land as being an asset, or does the board, I should say?
I think it would depend on the piece of land.
Okay, cool. Because I mean, in the annual plan, there's about $5 million of land sales for excess land and stuff like that from from memory. And so I just wanted to know whether
I think
the
it was
board
reinforcement of the strategic assets.
Yeah, I just wanted to get clarity on that.
They go through
Yeah,
community
yeah.
boards.
So I just wanted to make.
They all go through community boards for consideration. Yeah, Phil.
Okay.
Thank you very much, and especially for acknowledging the work that staff have done. We appreciate that as councillors too, Karolin. Yeah. Two areas. One is you referred to Barrington Park, or disability matters, and Barrington Park, which was, as you very much supported, for children with disabilities. In many ways, it's pretty much close to being an exemplar. I'm just wondering, is there a way that perhaps the board might also ask for that same standard to be continued, especially in your board area, but possibly across the city? That's the first question.
We were delighted with Barrington Park. The staff took the initiative of making it an accessible small playground for people with disability, both parents and children with disability. And they came to us with the proposal knowing that we were interested in disability access. We were thrilled with that. I think the designer did a great job, and not only that, as well as people having disability access and changing the textures of the soil, etc. underneath and doing all sorts of imaginative things, they put in a climbing wall where the kids risk their lives on a daily basis. It's great fun. And so we thought that the way they did that was just terrific, and we'd like to think that there would be no renewals of children's parks or development of a children's park without thinking about access for not only the kids themselves who may well be disabled, but also their parents or caregivers.
Thanks, Karolin. And my next and last question is about, if I may, Centennial Hall.
We're just over time now. Yeah.
Very briefly, does Centennial Hall stand out in terms of it being a need when you referred to, for example, the needs for the kids at the Kura?
You mean the land or the hall?
The land I'm talking about.
The land, yeah. Well, very definitely. The preschool for the Kura is in another part of our ward and is in they have got bubble wrap on the windows. It's in a disgraceful, disgusting state, and we as a board feel absolutely helpless looking at this preschool, knowing that it's absolutely inadequate for kids. It is wet, it is mouldy, and it's got plastic on the instead of windows.
How does it get through education?
I know, and there's no money coming out of it as well. But what they did want when they developed the Kura was to have a preschool attached. A Centennial Hall land could be one of the uses. We've made no guarantees. We've said we've committed to nothing, but it could be one of the uses that the land could be used for.
I'm flummoxed as to why the Ministry of Education is allowing such a site to be used.
I know.
And it's one of ours. It's our property, is it?
No, it's attached to Rowley. It's next door to Rowley School, and it's in a disgraceful state.
But it's not owned by the council.
No.
Oh God, no. I thought you were saying it was.
It's Ministry of Education.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll obviously follow up on that too. But thank you very much for your submission.
Okay.
Again, lots of hard work going in. Passionate contribution as usual. Thank you.